Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about third parties, and we're talking about one-legged leads. So let's talk about third parties to begin with. So a third party is anybody who's not present in your demonstration and your sale, who can then influence the situation, or who could have influenced the result. Now, in most cases, we think of third parties in the negative. We think about, oh my gosh, they're going to influence and I'm going to lose the sale because of a third party. Well, that's not always the case. I want you to ask yourself, if you went to a house and you had an appointment with a single missus and her adult daughter was there and you met her for about 10 minutes and then she was headed out the door to go somewhere, you know, the rookie mistake is to, I'll wait till the daughter leaves before I get into this. It's not going to do you any good. I mean, as soon as the daughter gets home or talks to mom again, she's going to ask what the result was and what happened. You're going to be the subject of conversation. So what would a professional do? A professional would do everything they could to get that adult daughter to stay. Because if she stays and she gets as excited about the product and the project as much as mom does, mom will feel even safer and more comfortable making a buying decision because somebody she knows and trusts sees it the same way she does. And so that'll reassure her that she's not being bamboozled or, you know, having the wool pulled over her eyes, and it actually is as good as she thinks it is. So it's a very reassuring situation for her to have somebody there. And even if the daughter doesn't stay, your obvious willingness and desire to have her stay and be part of the presentation sends a very strong message of how comfortable you are, how confident you are, how good you feel about your company and your product and your situation and yourself, because you would very much like her to be present. And even if she doesn't stay, that's a very strong message as well. So don't ever worry about having somebody there. Try and get them to stay. If you're in the middle of a demo and a third party shows up, stop where you're at and go back to the beginning and briefly acknowledge each step and bring them up to where you're at and then continue on normally. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I was in the middle of a product demo and somebody showed up, I would introduce myself, you know, Harold Haybeck, Remodel USA, how are you? And then I'd look at the homeowner and go, is this the good neighbor or the bad neighbor? And everybody would laugh, and that would be my warm-up. Just a little touch, just a little joke to get the warm-up. And then the company, I'd probably pull Qualified Remodeler out and tell them just how big we are and, you know, that we're not some fly-by-night operation. You know, I'm not going to do a 30-minute company. I'm going to do a 5-minute company based around Qualified Remodeler just to give that person. And then inspection, I'm going to ask them where they live and ask them if their window's bathroom or his kitchen are as old as this guy's is and look the same. And they might show interest that they want to talk to me, or they might be like, oh, no, not me. But anyway, it's still an acknowledgement and an inspection. And then, you know, just depending on what the product is, I might briefly touch on just a couple of comments about resale value or a couple of comments about eliminating the alternatives, how this person you're in front of, Mary and John, were very adamant that they wanted, you know, a higher quality solution than a lot of the junk that's on the market, like those metal framed windows or those reground vinyl windows or that acrylic showers or doing some old school like tile, and get them to agree that they could see why their friends would feel that way. And then I'd be up to the product and I would just pick up where I was at and continue on. So if you ever get interrupted in a demo, stop what you're doing, go back to the beginning, and just same steps, just 3 to 5 minutes on each one, acknowledge, bring that person up to speed to the same spot, and then continue on with where you're at. Another note before we run through the list here about third parties, tell you a couple of stories. I was very new in the window business in the 90s, and I was down in Southwest Virginia in the Jim Walters home, which is just a little rancher, 3 bedrooms and a bath with a den room in the front. You walk straight through the little eat-in kitchen with the washer and dryer and closet, straight out the back door to the backyard. And there was a single lady. She was a widow. She and her husband had built the house over 30 years before, and he'd been passed for a number of years. And they had bought the lot next to them. So it's a nice double lot yard. And then there was another Jim Walters home on the other side of that lot, which was where her best friend lived, who was also a widow, who had also built the home with her husband, and he'd been gone a while. So after I'd been in the house a couple of hours, of course, she saw this strange car, so she came marching across to see what's going on with her best friend, Betty, whatever her name was. And they were, like I said, best friends. So she just strolled right on. It was summer, so the main door was open. We just had the screen door there. And so she just strolled right on in and went over and got her coffee cup out of the place where you put your dry dishes, and she poured a cup of coffee and she sat down. I brought her up to speed because I had the window open, and then we did the window demo and got all the way to the end. And when I got to the end, because we all enjoy spending money, don't we? And whose money do we enjoy spending the most? Other people's. At the end, she literally stood up, looked at the sheet because we were getting $1,200 a window back then. This woman would have had 10 or 11 windows on a Jim Walters home. So I probably had, 12, 14 grand in front of her. And she looked at the piece of paper and she looked over at me. She looked at the piece of paper and then she looked up at Betty and she goes, I think you ought to do it. They look like mighty fine windows. And she walked over, rinsed her cup out, put it in the dish pot and walked out the door. So she was an actual help to making the sale. That same summer, a very similar situation. It was almost like a deja vu experience. I was sitting in front of another widow lady, Jim Walters' home. Her neighbor was there. The neighbor came over about the same point. Didn't get a cup of coffee this time, but sat down and went all the way through it. And when I got to the point of presenting price, the friend looked down and looked over at me and looked at the paper again, looked back at me, and she looked at her friend and said, that's a ridiculous price for windows. You should not spend that much money. You should be ashamed of yourself, young man, to ask for that kind of money for windows. That's crazy. And turned around and walked out the door. And I said, well, there goes my sale. But the lady I was with leaned forward and watched her friend go across. It wasn't a double lot this time. Walk across the little strip between the homes and go up in her side door and in the house. And as soon as the screen door closed behind her, she leaned back and said, she just said that because she can't afford to get any windows. That's why she said that. And she bought windows too. So don't make assumptions. You don't know what's going to happen. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to understand that anybody can be influenced by third parties. But there are three categories that are influenced more by third parties than less. And that is obviously the very old, the very young, and single people. The very old, who are they influenced by? Their kids, obviously. And a little hint, the more issues they're having health-wise and mobility-wise, the more likely somebody's involved as a third party. If they're not driving anymore, or they're on walkers, or they got a chairlift going up and down the stairs, somebody is checking on them several times a week. Somebody's taking them to the grocery store or to doctor's appointments or coming over and helping them do things around the house. They've got a third-party influence. Now, if you got some guy, 92 years old, he's all lean like a greyhound, those smaller lean guys that live forever, and he's out there push mowing his lawn, and he's got the bumper sticker on the back of his RV that says, I'm spending my kid's inheritance, you're probably good. But if they're infirm, meaning they're feeble or having medical issues, they're much more likely to have a third-party influence. The very young, influenced by their either older brothers and sisters or their parents, especially if the parents help them with the down payment on the home. If you found that out in warm-up, you better address third-party influence with this particular group of young people. And single people, men or women, but women a little bit more, and I'm not saying anything derogatory towards women. Women are smarter in a lot of things about using a second opinion or sounding board than men are. If you're old enough to remember when we didn't have GPS maps on our phone or Garmin's, the old joke was a man would wander around forever if he was lost because he wouldn't ask for directions where a woman would. It's the same kind of thing. A woman is more like, single people in general want a sounding board. They don't have a spouse. They don't have somebody to lean on in the thought process. So this applies to any single person. But women just a little bit more. They're more likely to have somebody they trust as a sounding board, a sibling, somebody at work, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, a neighbor, could be a family member, but somebody where they run things by just to check if they're, tracking right and if the way it sounded to them is the way it sounds to their trusted advisor. So these three. Now, if you run into one of these, you don't automatically do this. You need to ask yourself, is this person liable to be influenced by third party? And if they are, this is what I want you to do. With an excited voice, like you're curious, not like this is dreadful and you're scared of the answer, but with an excited tone in your voice, you go, hey, who are you going to tell first about your new kitchen or your new windows or your new bathroom or your new roof? Who are you going to tell first about your new windows? And the person they name that they're going to tell first, that's your third-party killer. That's the one that can get you. Now, with the same excited tone in your voice, because you're curious, that's why you're asking. It's just curious. You ask, what will they say when you tell them you spent $25,000 on your new bathroom, kitchen, windows, what have you? And if they look at you and go, it's none of their business because I'm not going to tell them, or I don't care, or who cares, you're good. You can stop there. they're not going to be influenced by a third party. But if they show any signs of hesitancy, or they say something like, I don't know, they might yell at me, or they might tell me I'm crazy, or they might tell me that's a stupid idea, then you need to bring it to the word crazy. So, or if they go, I don't know what they would say, then you bring it to the word crazy. You simply say to them, well, they might tell you you're crazy. Yeah, they might. Or they say, I don't know what they'd say. They might tell you you're crazy. Or they say, I don't know, they'll probably tell me I'm stupid, or that's a bad decision. They might tell you you're crazy, huh? So you bring it to this. This is the word I use. It could be a different word for you, but you bring it to that, and now you've got an elephant in the room, and you've pulled the blanket off that elephant. You've revealed it. Now you got to deal with it. And so what you say is, when they say, yeah, they probably will tell me I'm crazy. Of course they will. They love you. They care about you. They didn't get a chance to meet me. They haven't seen the product or what we went over today. What else could they say? Notice how slow I said it. Talking in sound bites again with nice long pauses so the person can track the conversation, especially if it's an old person. Of course they would say that. They love you. They care about you. They didn't get a chance to meet me, and they haven't seen the product or everything you've seen here today. And then you say, can you explain to them about, and you list the features of, the stone composite wall and the installation down to the studs and, the lifetime warranty and installers that are background checking. And you give them 8 or 9 hot buttons about the installation, the company, proper insurance, and our crews are here from start to finish. They're going to have it done in just a couple of days. You give them some hot buttons about the company and the crews and the product and the installation, and ask them if they can convey that. And if they come back and go, yeah, no, I can do that, then you just roll the dice and see what happens. And let your manager know, and they'll address it the next day on the CV call and help lock it down some more. If they look at you and go, I don't know if I can, then you need to offer to get involved. That's why you want to know your various product websites really well. I can't tell you, and it's probably a dozen for each product line over the 3 decades I've been doing this, in the over 30 years. I've had multiple times I've gotten children, usually because it's usually older people, to be honest with you. I've gotten children or younger siblings on the phone, had them go to their computer because they're 2 or 3 hours away or across the country, and go to the open a window website, or go to our company website, or go to the Wolf Cabinet website and talk about the product and talk about the installation. And when they're done, they go, I'm so glad you called. Yes, that really looks like good stuff. Thank you. Because there's 2 kinds of people out there, and you can't control who you're talking to. There's either the person that loves whoever it is you're in front of and they do just care about them and love them and want the best for them. And the fact that the person you're in front of would like to do a kitchen or like to do a bathroom or like to do windows is perfectly okay. It's their money. It's their home. They're entitled to. This person on the other end of the phone just wants to make sure they're not taken advantage of and that they're getting good value for their dollar and everything's going to be handled correctly. And if you're in front of that person, then you taking the trouble to call them and include them in the conversation and tell them how it's going to be done, they're going to appreciate that. Because most people are scared to do that. And they're going to thank you and it looks good and, you're doing it the right way and I really appreciate the phone call, and give them your name and number or your manager's number in case you have any questions. That way they can reach out because they're not on the paperwork, so you want to know that they can contact you. Even though I'm not a big fan of giving out numbers because I'm on the road all the time. In a third-party situation, I would. And so then you'll save that sale. And the second type of person, and they're out there, is someone who doesn't want the person you're in front of to spend the money because they're greedy. They want that money for themselves. They don't want their parents to spend any of their inheritance. And if that's who you got, occasionally you'll still get it because you can point out to the people that are in front of you, the older couple, how often do they come? Do they help you? Do they drop by? No. Well, you want this, don't you? Yeah, I do. Well, let's get it done then. I don't understand why. And maybe occasionally get one, but blood's thicker than water, and a lot of times you don't, and those just fall apart. You can't change family dynamics. But those are minorities. Trust me, most people want that person to get what they want. It's their life, it's their money, it's their home. They just want to feel comfortable and safe about what's happening. So reach out and have that conversation if needed. So that's your third parties. Don't be scared. Bring them up to speed and embrace them. They can help you close. Now let's talk about one-legged leads. One-legged leads are not you go to the home and the mister's upstairs working in his office and he doesn't come down to join you. It's not a one-legged lead. Both players are at the house. It's up to you to get them together and find a way. Remember, our game that we're playing is to do or say what we need to do to make the homeowner want to do the plan we want, which is both of them sitting down and do the demo. So that's the game I'm playing if they're separated in the house. I'm not calling that a one-legged lead because it's not. A one-legged lead is somebody that's involved in the buying process, is not present. So don't plant the objection for the homeowner. Don't ask them, is there anybody else involved in the process? Or ask an old person, are your kids involved in helping you make decisions? Because all you're doing is giving them the objection to using the close that keeps you from being able to close them. Don't arm them like that. First of all, I'm going to do the same process of warm-up and marketing survey and give them the agenda as I normally do. Because I'm not going to make the final decision about a one-legged lead till I've been there 40 or 50 minutes. You have to do it before you reach an hour. Because after an hour, it's a demo no matter what, and you're committed and you got to go for it. Can't change, you can't decide at an hour and a half you're not going to do it. But in 40 to 50 minutes, after you go through this, and don't try and do it in 10 minutes, invest a little time. Start moving from suspect to prospect so they're getting comfortable with you and the answers they give you are more honest. If you ask in 5 or 10 minutes, you're just a fast, slick talking salesperson and it's very obvious what you're doing. So I'm still going to do the warm up. I'm still going to do the marketing survey, and in the inspection, especially if I got bathrooms, one of the real common questions, if you haven't been able to figure out if there's more people involved at this point, is you simply ask them, how many people use this bathroom? Because that's a logical question for a bathroom representative to ask, and it'll get you talking about how many people use the bathroom. So we want to find a way to demo. We want to find a way to demo because no matter what they say to you about, yes, we'll do this in 2 or 3 days when my wife is here, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to reset. Only 5% of them do. Only 1 in 20 resets. We lose the rest of them. This is a fast-paced age. People want what they want, when they want it, and they want it now. And then they get busy and something else happens and trying to get them tied down or even get them back on the phone. Telling you folks, only 1 in 20 resets. So don't buy into that smiling face in front of you that says, for sure, we're going to meet next, whatever. Because a lot of them, something comes up and they don't. So we want to demo. We made the miles. We drove. We want to find a way, if at all possible, to get into a demo. However, I need to be talking to the person that set the appointment. So I would find that out in the marketing survey. If I'm asking, how'd you hear about us and what made you answer our ad and who did you talk to and were they pleasant, the first person you talked to at the company, if they say something like, well, I don't know, I didn't set the appointment, I know the answer, don't I? And if they can answer all those questions, then without asking, are you the one that set the appointment? I know that I'm talking to the person that set the appointment. See, even if the person in front of you is very interested, if they didn't set the appointment, that's telling you the other person's very interested too. And the person in front of you, because the other person's very interested, isn't going to do it without that person involved. So you got to be talking to the person that sets the appointment. It's not an absolute, but I generally want to be talking to the wife. Kitchens and bathrooms, it is the wife driving this show. Now, windows, doors, and roofing, it's more of an even thing. You're not really sure which one's driving it. She'd like pretty windows until then, but it's also kind of the construction maintenance outside of the house, so she might defer to him a little bit on that. But if it's bathrooms and kitchens, the wife is making the final decision of whether she wants it. She's the design person. He will not be able to design a kitchen or bathroom that he feels confident she'd be absolutely thrilled with his choices without her there. So don't kid yourself. Now, with a roof, I might be a little more lenient about it having to be the wife. With doors, depends on what door. Front door, I need the wife. It's the front door of the house. Are you kidding? You think he's going to pick a style of door that's the front door she walks up to and the guests walk up to and not have her involved? Windows, again, kind of depends on the situation. But kitchens and bathrooms, I got to have the wife. Roof, not necessarily. I'll kind of play it case by case. Windows and doors the same way. And I'm going at 40 to 50 minutes in, after I've done the inspection, I'm going to bring up the fact that this is a custom project. There are a lot of decisions that need to be made as far as design, colors, and choices. Do you feel completely confident in making those decisions for the household? Don't say for you and your partner, you and your spouse, or you and your husband, or you and your wife. Say for the household, because that sounds like it's a lot more important, a lot more, the whole household I'm making the decisions for. So remember, word choices matter. So listen, I do want to just ask you before we get into it, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made as far as colors and customization and actually designing the project. Do you feel completely confident in making all those decisions for the household? Or would we be better if we reconvene this when you could both be here? Because I won't even be able to give you that 1 year quote if we can't make the design choices. So do you feel confident in being able to do those for the household? You know exactly what? Just ask them. And if they say no, or she needs to be here, or he needs to be here, then you got to go for the reset. They can't buy if you can't design it, and they can't buy without a price, and you can't give them a price without a design, and you can't just give them a maybe price and we'll finalize the design later, because nobody's going to buy under those conditions. It's got to be the project they want in their home, and here's the figures for that project. So if they can't design it, I'm not going to do it. But I'm looking for a way to demo. I'm going in this home to find a path to demo if absolutely possible. And in the day of FaceTime and Zoom and speakerphones, you'd be amazed how many times you can still close a deal and we just reach out to that missing person once or twice. Or even run samples up and show them to the person working upstairs, and they come down and say, yeah, we picked this one. And then they take the numbers up and talk. You might never meet the person. The other thing, about 40 to 50 minutes in, you'd be amazed how many times the other person shows up while you're going through that first couple of steps, and there they are, and you're good to go. So let's not look for a reason to leave. Let's look for a reason to demo. I will definitely demo one-legged. I will demo if the other person's in the house. I don't care if I'm talking to the person that made the appointment or if I'm talking to the Mr. or Mrs. If they're present in the home, I'm going for the demo, and I'm going to rely on the fact that I'm going to be 2 to 2.5 hours before I put a price in front of them, that somewhere in that time frame, my missing party will come down, and like a third party, I'll just go back, briefly bring them through the steps, bring them up to wherever I'm at, go through product choices with them. This is what we chose. You like that? This is what we decided. How's it look? They all love it. And then do the presentation of price with them. So only true one-legged is the party's not present on the property. Then I make these calls. If the person's present on the property, I'm going for it, and I'm going to see if the time of the demo will solve the problem. It might not, but that's the high percentage play, is go for the demo if they're both there and see if time solves your problem. Now, does a true one-legged close at the same percentage as if they're both there and chuckling and happy? No, I realize it doesn't. But none of them close if you don't demo. All you do is drive for 2, 3, 4 hours there and back and spend your gas money and your time and got no shot. So I'm going to take a shot, if at all possible. Send me any comments that would have made this training a little bit better. Don't hesitate to like and follow.